Hey up, it's Steve from the Old Yorkshire Geek, and I've got a list to do today. Thanks to Marie, my friend Marie, who sent me this list. It's from Cinema Blend, the best 35 best science fiction movies of all time, ranked. So we're going to go through the list, and I'm going to agree or disagree with their selection. And the ones I disagree with, I'm going to put an alternative in. It might not. The list might not be my, order that I'd put them in. It probably isn't the order I'd put them in. So I won't bother putting them in my order. We'll stick with their order. Apologies if I'm a bit fuzzy. I don't know. My hearing's gone a bit doolally. My ears are blocked for some reason. I think it might be the weather. I don't know. I'm some sort of weird barometer. I think the air pressure's doing weird things to my ears. But hopefully I sound okay. I sound weird to me. I sound weird anyway, but I sound weird to myself. So let's get on with it. Where have I put it? Right, here we go. As I said, it's from Cinema Blend. You can't see it, never mind. It's from Cinema Blend. As usual, links in the description. And don't forget, over there, like and subscribe, share the videos, drop a comment, hit the notification bell. I'm also on Rumble and Anchor.fm and Spotify and Amazon Music Podcasts and Google Podcasts. And I've also got social media things on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Oh, I've got something in my eye. Links for those are in the description, as are the links for my 2 books, Mercury Rapids and Silent Predator. Give them a look. It's just a bit of fun. Right, here we go. 35 best sci-fi movies of all time ranked. Right, here we go. Science fiction is quite simply one of the most popular genres of film that we have. I mean, one of my choices was a TV thing, and so I've had to think of something else. I'm going to include Star Trek The Cage from 1960, was it 5 or 4 when they did it? 1964, I think, when they made it. So that was on TV though, but I think that's one of the best science fiction, movies of the 60s. But never mind. The rejected pilot for Star Trek, the original series. I think it's brilliant. Anyway, right, where were we? The creation of faraway places and futuristic technology seems to be exactly what the medium of film was designed to create. Science fiction on film has been around for as long as there have been movies. But which ones are the best? Figuring that out is a nearly impossible task, because it's all subjective, isn't it? But we're going to do it anyway. Yeah, good on you, Cinema Blend. All the movie minds here at Cinema Blend got together and made suggestions of potential films that could go on that list. From there, we picked 35 of them. Why 35? No idea. Why not 25 or 50? I don't know, 35. Because we didn't pick 33, or had been accusing them of being Freemasons. Anyway, from there, we argued about which ones were being left off. Then we changed the list around and argued some more. We think we have something that works pretty well. They'll ask us tomorrow and we may have a different answer. Exactly, it's subjective. And it depends what your mood is a lot of the time. You try and think of a science fiction film and its impact on the world, and say that opinion could change. You try and be, factual and stuff, but, it's all subjective, isn't it? But there are some objectively great films in this list. For the moment, here are the 35 best science fiction movies ever ranked in their opinion. And straight off, number 35, Annihilation. No, that won't get in the list for me. Here we go. Annihilation is a movie that was generally reviewed well, and it's also a movie that a lot of people have very strong feelings about. It was okay in my view. However, the fact that everybody feels strongly about it, that they don't, shows how well the movie did its job. On its surface, Annihilation is absolutely a science fiction story with a mysterious alien presence and strange creatures, but there's a lot more going on inside Annihilation. It's also an emotional journey about change, grief and loss. Yeah, well, whatever. Natalie Portman, in it. They go into this weird alien thing happens, and they go inside, and there's a screaming bear. But yeah, if you include Annihilation, then you've got to include films like Birdcage and stuff like that. Films that debuted on streaming, which were just as well received. I think it trended just as much as Annihilation did. But never mind. But in my case, where's my list? I changed that one. By the way, this list of mine, where I'm just swapping them out, they're not in any order. They're just films I thought of. And this one, my number 35, it's not really 35, it's just a great science fiction film, Event Horizon. Paul W.S. Anderson's Event Horizon, starring Lawrence Fishburne and many others, Sam Neill. It's a great science fiction horror film, and it's a lot better than Annihilation, and it's Paul W.S. Anderson's best film. Right, number 34, Robocop. I think I left that one alone. I'd probably put it a little bit higher, to be honest, than 34, but anyway, there you go. There's a lot to love about Robocop, and to be clear, we're talking about the original version from 1987. By the way, there he is. Your move, creep. If you're into hyper-violent action movies, it has that. If you just like science fiction movies with cyborgs, you're covered. However, one thing that elevates Robocop from simply being a fun movie to becoming a great one is the satire. The film actually has something important to say about modern society, something that might even be more relevant today than it was in the 1980s. It's a smart film that just so happens to have people turned into a red mist via high-caliber machine guns. And also, a joint one with this, if you include in Robocop, includes Starship Troopers, because it's got kind of similar feel to it with the satire. And same director, same writers. But yeah, you should include that as well. Starship Troopers. Number 33, Fifth Element, Multipass. Multipass, great film. I think I left that one alone as well. Yes, I did. Luc Besson's The Fifth Element is one of those films that took a while to become a go-to science fiction movie. It did solid box office business, but was far from a huge hit when first released. The most expensive French film ever made, because it's technically a French film. However, through home video and streaming services, more and more people have come across the film, and it seems to have become a film with little negative reaction. It's a great film. I love it. Bruce Willis plays a cab driver who gets pulled into a fight for galactic survival by a beautiful woman played by Mila Jovovich. Or is it Jovovich? I don't know. The premise, you know what I'm like with names. The premise is simple, but thanks to delightfully fun characters like Chris Tucker's Ruby Rod and a musical number that nobody will ever forget. See, that sounds just like it, didn't it? This one will survive the test of time. So there we go. So I left that one alone. Might have been higher in mine. I don't know. Here we go. Blade Runner 2049. Why the hell is this in the list? I have no idea. Because I thought it was crap. I thought it was boring. It was rubbish, in my opinion. But we'll read it. The sequel to Ridley Scott's Blade Runner took decades to produce. Much like the movie that came before it, Blade Runner 2049 largely failed to ignite audiences because it was rubbish. But I don't think it'll improve with age, to be honest, like the original did. That wasn't a big hit at the time, but it got a cult following, and now it's one of the greatest sci-fi films ever, isn't it? I don't think this one will have a similar arc. But make no mistake, this movie is also, much like the original, an absolutely amazing piece of filmmaking. It's beautiful, both in cinematography and tone. Yeah, it looks nice, it's just boring. Ryan Gosling's performance is excellent. Sorry, it just got really cold in here for some reason. I don't know why. I should put my coat on again. It's a fitting follow-up to a classic, and it certainly didn't kill the franchise as follow-up Blade Runner series is currently in early development. Is it? I don't know. They're doing a series. That's the first I've heard of it. 31 Tron. By the way, no, I changed that one, didn't I? What did I do that one instead of that one? This might be a controversial entry. In place of Blade Runner 2049, I put Avengers Infinity War. I think that is an amazing film. It's a superhero film. It's a science fiction film. They go into space, they go to other planets. So it's a science fiction film. It's a rip-roaring adventure, and it's got a downbeat ending. It's like the Empire Strikes Back of the Avengers, isn't it? It's a great film, and I think it's a lot better than Blade Runner 2049. So I'd put that one there. Agree with me or disagree with me? I don't care. Right, Tron. I think I left this one alone. Yes, I did. Because Tron's a good film. It's not a great film. So there could be some argument that really it shouldn't be in this list, but I'll give it a pass. because it's got sentimental value, I suppose. In the 1980s, by the way, there's Bruce Boxleitner, as Tron, and Jeff Bridges as I forgot his name now. His character. Oh God. Yeah, him anyway. Right, in the 1980s, the computer became a device that the average family could afford. As such, there was an explosion in ownership. They still cost thousands, didn't they? Like a Mac or something like that, or whatever they were called back then. That had 1 megabyte of RAM or 512k of RAM and the big massive floppy disk thing. They were still like $3,000 and pounds and stuff, weren't they? Anyway, this aspect of science fiction made real was the premise of Tron. I mean, the ones that people like me could afford, with like the ZX81 and the Sinclair Spectrum and stuff like that. Other people got Commodore 64s, but they were a bit richer. The aspect of science fiction made real was the premise of Tron, a film that wondered about what was really happening inside the machine. While the film may feel a little dated by current standards, you simply can't underestimate what the movie brought to the screen upon its release. The computer effects that created the digital world had simply never been seen before. It was a leap forward in technology that dozens of films would be influenced by. Yeah, but there's fewer CG effects in Tron than you'd realise. A lot of it is actually traditional effects, like analog effects, I suppose you could say. There was some CG in it, but not as much as you'd think. A lot of it were actually, traditional animation, and as I said, there were effects, overlay effects and stuff like that. It was essentially shot in black and white. The bit where they were inside the computer was shot in black and white, and then effects were overlaid over the top and stuff like that, rather than done with CG. But there was some in it. I think probably more. I bet there were more CG in The Last Starfighter, which came out a couple of years after. So at a push, I would replace Tron with The Last Starfighter, because I think that were a little bit more groundbreaking than Tron. Although Tron did come first. But even then it could be argued that Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, came first, because that had a CG scene in it. But never mind. Anyway, we'll leave that alone. So Tron or The Last Starfighter, interchangeable there for me. Number 30, The Abyss. Did I leave that one? Yes, I left that one in. I was thinking about changing this one, but I decided not to, because it's a good film. While most science fiction movies take place among the stars, some of them can work within the confines of our own planet. The Abyss finds alien life residing at the bottom of the ocean, showing that James Cameron has been wondering about what's going on in our waters since long before Titanic. I think 1989 it came out, didn't it? The same year that films like Deep Star 6 and Leviathan came out. Similar film, well, set underwater anyway. The claustrophobia of the environment is palpable, making the movie an exciting ride all the way through. In addition, it brought computer-generated... pardon me. I just had beans on toast. In addition, it brought computer-generated characters to the next level, thanks to groundbreaking work from Industrial Light and Magic like that. That eventually morphed into that effect. Eventually, kind of became the T-1000 in Terminator 2. The water tentacle. They're still impressive effects, even if James Cameron now finds them quaint. A little surprising, considering the film opened to disappointing box office numbers. If you haven't seen this one, fix that soon. Yeah, but they were just that water tentacle, really. All the other effects, well, I say practical effects, really. The aliens and stuff, and the submarines and all the stuff that were happening underwater. A lot of it were filmed underwater. Some of it were filmed in, smoke-filled rooms and stuff like that. Inception, I think I'm swapping this one out. Even though I did enjoy it, yes, but we'll have a read. While director Christopher Nolan did a lot of good to bring credibility to the comic book genre with his Dark Knight trilogy, It was a film he made in between those movies that was truly revolutionary. In many ways, the setup was that of a simple heist. However, the trick was that the information our team needed to steal was inside somebody's head. The story creates technology that allows them to enter the dreams of unsuspecting victims. Inception has many of the hallmarks of the best science fiction. It creates a fictional world with specific rules that the story must abide by, making the situation feel more real than it could ever be. This combined with some stunning visual set pieces captured practically rather than digitally, although there was some digital stuff in it, the bending and stuff, of the worlds, makes Inception a worthy recent entry to this list. But like I say, I did enjoy it, but I don't think it was as amazing as people made out to be. But I'm not a huge Christopher Nolan fan. I think he's a bit, look how clever I am. It's a bit of a show-off, and that puts me off a little bit. Because I think he knows he's showing off how clever he is. I don't like smart asses. But it is a good film. But I would change that for, and I know it's a totally different film. It's got nothing to do with Inception or dreams or the mind or anything. But in my list, I swapped this one out for The Time Machine, 1960. Rod Taylor, Yvette Mimieux. I think it was directed by George Pal. Yes, it was. And that's a great film, based on the H.G. Wells novel. A chap goes forward in time to the year 800 and something thousand, fights creatures called Morlocks. And it's great fun, and it's great. And I like it more than Inception. I've seen Inception once. I've seen The Time Machine innumerable times. Right, let's move on. Ex Machina, another film I'm going to change. Another film I thought were overrated. Maybe it's just Alex Garland I don't like. Because he did Annihilation as well, didn't he? But anyway. The concept of artificial intelligence has been covered in countless science fiction movies over the years. However, it has never been done as well as it was in Ex Machina. And it has, as we will see. Alicia Vikander plays Ava, an artificial life form that may or may not be capable of true consciousness and emotion. Can humans truly relate to a machine the way we relate to each other? And if we can, what exactly does that mean about our concepts of what it means to be alive? Ex Machina is the all-too-rare dramatic science fiction movie. It has no ray guns or explosions. It's ultimately about people, even if one of the people isn't entirely real. And I think the same year, I can't actually remember when Ex Machina came out. Just let me check. Should have done this before, because I'm not live, but never mind. I don't care. Oh, no, it came out the year after the film I'm replacing it with. Where are we now? I've lost me link. I'm swapping this out for The Machine, a British film from 2013, which I think had a fraction of the budget of Ex Machina. Although I don't think Ex Machina had a massive budget. But The Machine from 2013, starring Toby Stephens and... hang on, where are we? Toby Stephens and Katie Lotz and lots of other people. And that's a similar story about AI, an android. It's about the British government, or an arm of the British government, trying to develop artificial intelligence to put in androids to send out in wars and stuff like that. And it's really, really, really good. It is, and it's a lot better than Ex Machina, in my opinion. And it came out the year before, and nobody's heard of it except me. So look for that one. Right, let's carry on. Edge of Tomorrow. I think I've swapped this one out as well, although I did enjoy this one. Yes, I have swapped this one out. You might be surprised at what I've swapped it with, but as I said, they're not in any order, and most of them don't have any real connection with the films I'm swapping them for, apart from that Ex Machina one, and a couple of others, but most of them, they're just random films I just thought of. Tom Cruise is almost always an actor who's good for making a fun time at the movies. However, the criminally underrated Edge of Tomorrow is so much more than that. The story follows Cruise's character, a military officer who has never seen combat before, but is now forced to the front lines as he accidentally gets exposed to alien technology and discovers that the reason the aliens are winning the war is because they have the ability to travel back and repeat time and learn from their mistakes. What was the other title of it? Live, Die, Repeat, or something like that. Oh, yeah. Stupid. Once he gains the same ability, we get to see him use it to learn how to fight and try to win. Also, you get to watch Tom Cruise get blown up a lot. A sequel to Edge of Tomorrow has been planned for years, but the most recent word is it may never happen. I enjoyed Edge of Tomorrow, but I don't think it belongs in the top 35 best science fiction films of all time. I'm swapping it for Galaxy Quest, which I think's one of the best Star Trek films of all time. That's a great film. Starring the late great there's going to be an edit here because I forgot his bloody name. Oh, for God's sake. Me and my bloody mind. Definitely an edit here. Good job I'm not live. Good job I'm not live. Alan Rickman here. Starring the late, great Alan Rickman, Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Tony Shalhoub, Sam Rockwell, Justin Long, all them people. And it's a great film. It's a love story to Star Trek fandom that doesn't take the mickey out of Star Trek fans. It ribs them, but it doesn't take the mickey. And it's a great film. And I'd swap that out. Even though I do enjoy Edge of Tomorrow, I think Galaxy Quest I watch more. As I said, I've seen another film, up the list. I've seen Edge of Tomorrow once, and that were enough for me. Although I did enjoy it, but I've never felt I need to go watch it again. To be honest, I probably watched The Tomorrow War again rather than Edge of Tomorrow. I don't know why, but I still wouldn't have that on the list either. But Galaxy Quest, yes, I would have that on the list. Right, next up, Back to the Future. This one's obviously staying in the list because it's not just one of the greatest science fiction films of all time, it's one of the greatest films of all time. And this would have been higher up, to be honest. But to be honest, I probably wouldn't have thought of this in the list of science fiction films because I know it's got time travel and stuff, but it probably wouldn't have occurred to me to include it in a list of science fiction films. But good for Cinema Blend, they've included it. And while we're discussing time travel, let's talk about what is probably the most popular time travel movie ever made. Even more rare than the science fiction drama is the science fiction comedy, yet Back to the Future does it perfectly. It's true that the science fiction mechanic of the film exists only to give a reason to have 1980s Marty McFly experience the world of 1955, yet the movie deals with many of your standard time travel tropes, including accidentally changing the past to negate the future, the bootstrap paradox, not to mention the possibility, or the grandfather paradox, not to mention the possibility of accidentally becoming your own father, which is funny and also gross. It's a movie so great that fans wanted more sequels for years. That won't happen, though. Michael J. Fox has an idea for a reboot. Oh, does he? It's a movie so great, fans wanted more sequels for years. Well, they got two, didn't they? Oh, dear. But yeah, that obviously stays in the list. Just let me double-check my list and make sure it does. Yes, of course it does. Right, next up, The Martian. There's going to science the shit out of it. That's what he says. Another film I've seen once and I thought it were okay. It's a Ridley Scott film, I think, isn't it? But apparently I've heard most of it were filmed by somebody else, don't ask me who. And Ridley Scott basically just tidied it up. Probably did a few reshoots, but got the credit for it. When a science fiction movie gets nominated for an Oscar, you know it's something special. Did it win a Golden Globe for Best Musical or Comedy? Golden Globes are mental, aren't they? You know it's something special. The Martian is the most recent movie on this list, and while it might be a little soon, in the end it was just too good to ignore. While the movie is cast away in space, it's also so much more. This movie just has everything that hardcore science fiction fans love: space travel, alien worlds, and enough scientific fact built in to make the story plausible. Just about. Add in the fact that the film is legitimately funny and you've got a movie that is already one of the best ever made in the genre. As I said, before the other films, I've seen it once. I've no urge to watch it again, and I won't include it in the list, top 35 best science fiction films, but the film that I've replaced it with does have a connection to it, and you'll probably be surprised. I don't know when it was made, actually. I'd better type this in, hadn't I? See, drum roll. Drum roll. I thought it were older than that, but never mind. The film I'm replacing it with is Robinson Crusoe on Mars from 1964, starring Victor Lundin and Paul Mantee and Adam West and a monkey. But yeah, that's a film I've seen a few times. Where have I put my other list? There we go. Obviously, you think, it's a B movie, but it's a really good one, and it's about a man, cast away on Mars, Robinson Crusoe on Mars, but he meets, aliens on there, and it's good and it's exciting and it's thought-provoking and it's a well-made 1960s science fiction movie, and I think that belongs on this list more than The Martian. So there, I don't care if The Martian got nominated for an Oscar and it won a Golden Globe. Big deal. I've seen it once, I'll never watch it again. 12 Monkeys, a film I got about 10 minutes into and turned it off because I thought it was crap. People love it, don't know why. Got a TV series which I'd never seen. I don't know why I don't like it. But Terry Gilliam has directed some gloriously fantastic science fiction, including, same with Brazil. I've never got into Brazil either. I don't know what people see in these films. Maybe I'm just too stupid. Including a couple of films that came very close to making this list. I bet Brazil were one of them. However, his best science fiction movie has got to be 12 Monkeys. The story of a man sent back in time to prevent the spread of a plague would seem straightforward. But straightforward is something that never happens when Terry Gilliam is involved. A movie that earned Brad Pitt his first Oscar nomination and also contains one of the best performances by Bruce Willis. Simply can't be left off this list. Well, it'll be left off mine because I didn't like it. What did I replace it with? You'd be saying, what have you replaced it with that for? I've replaced it for Invasion of the BodySnatchers. You can either take the 56 original or the 1978 remake with Donald Sutherland. I'd go for the original 56 one. Because I think that's a much better film and a better science fiction film about, alien pod people taking over the world. But that's what I'd replace 12 Monkeys with. I don't know what people see in that film. Sorry. As I said, these lists are subjective, and that is my subjective opinion. Right, another one. This is obviously staying on the list. You know what that is. It's Klaatu. Day the Earth Stood Still from 1951. The question of whether or not we're alone in the universe is a consistent theme in science fiction films. The answering of that question was the subject of one of the great classics of the genre, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Today, the words Klaatu, Barada, Nikto still survive in pop culture. The Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, which shows just what an impact the movie had. And don't forget the universal greeting from Transformers the movie, Bar Whip Grana Whip Niniban. Why do I remember that? I had no idea. One wonders how many people even know that this is where the phrase comes from. So often when we do meet aliens in movies, they are hostile invaders. But even back in 1951, a movie wondered if it was possible that we were the aggressive ones. Well, it did threaten to turn Earth into a smouldering cinder or whatever it said. But yeah, obviously that gets left in the list. I'll just double check. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. I've just got to check another film now because I don't know when it was made. I think I know, but I better double check it. Oh no, we're wrong. Anyway, right, where were we? So that's staying. Right, Snowpiercer. There's Chris Evans in Snowpiercer. Another film I've seen once. It got a series, didn't it, that people rave about, which I've not seen. But I saw this film once and thought, yeah, well, whatever. Why is it on this list? I've no idea. One of the movies on this list, most of the movies on this list are big and popular films that you're likely familiar with, even if you haven't seen them. Snowpiercer was something of an unknown quantity upon its release. Over time, however, it has acquired a significant fan base. Korean director Bong Joon-ho's English language debut sees Chris Evans as a passenger on a train in a future world that has been taken over by ice. Only those on a constantly moving train survive, and the quality of life is dictated by your position on the train. Those in the back start a revolt that takes them forward on the massive train. Whether you're looking for great action sequences or an examination of society, you'll get both with Snowpiercer. That's it. It's just it's a film about class, isn't it? So you could include that film. Is it High Rise? That's a similar sort of theme, isn't it? Anyway, what did I replace this one with? A Boy and His Dog from 1975, starring, I forgot his name, Don Johnson. That's who it is, Don Johnson. And I can't remember, Tim McIntyre as his dog, as the voice of his dog. That's set in an apocalyptic future where, you got to fight to survive, and it has a pretty grim ending. Or it could be a happy ending if you look at it in another way. But that's a film that deserves to be on this list, I think, more than Snowpiercer. A Boy and His Dog. So let's carry on. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Another film I did enjoy, but I've just seen once. Jim Carrey and what's her face from Titanic, Kate Winslet. But anyway, there are so many ways one could describe Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It's a science fiction drama. It's a romantic comedy. It's just a general mind F of a movie. Eternal Sunshine is all these things and more. Charlie Kaufman is known for writing some of the more offbeat stories in recent memory, but this one may very well be his masterpiece. By the time this one came out, we knew that Jim Carrey wasn't just a comedian, and we already knew how great Kate Winslet was, but we saw entirely different sides of both actors here. The story follows two ex-lovers as they decide to get the memories of each other erased entirely from their heads. The movie's utterly bizarre, but that doesn't stop it from being an emotional journey. Other films have done similar things, haven't they? I mean, that film Eraser, which is kind of similar but different, and other stuff. Why include this one over those? Like I say, it's an okay film, but I don't think it belongs on this list, and I'm going to change it for something. If you include this, you should include films like The Truman Show, which, although a different premise, it had a similar vibe, in my opinion. And that was Jim Carrey as well, wasn't it? But I've swapped this one for Silent Running from, I think, 1974 or 73. I should have all these checked, shouldn't I? I should have just written it in. Did it? 72. Tell you, older than I thought. I am. I've swapped this one for Silent Running from 1972. Douglas Trumbull directed it, starring Bruce Dern and three lovable three lovable robots, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, who they're looking after the last known forests from Earth. Earth has become like some wasteland or something. There's these forests on these spaceships, and one of the spaceships is the USS Valley Forge. And the film was actually filmed on the USS Valley Forge aircraft carrier. And they're ordered to destroy the forest and return to Earth. But Bruce Dern refuses this order, kills his crewmates, and sets off out towards Saturn with the droids. And it's a very sad ending, and I guarantee you'll probably be crying by the end. So that deserves to be in this list above Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Right, Dune 2021. There's Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides. I've swapped this one as well, although I did enjoy it. But here we go. Ever since David Lynch tried and unfortunately failed, we'll see, to adapt Dune for the screen, the Frank Herbert novel was widely considered impossible to turn into a movie. Denis Villeneuve has found at least half of the solution, as 2021's Dune is an absolutely excellently produced film. Yeah, it looks nice. And it has a shelf full of Oscars to prove it. If there's any knock against the film, it's that it only tells half the actual story. Well, at least less than half, really. So we're still waiting for June 2, or June Chapter 2, or Part 2, or whatever they're calling it. Which I think is out later this year, I think, or is it next year? But I haven't included this one. I have included, speaking of David Lynch, I've included David Lynch's Dune in this list, because I absolutely love that film. I think it's amazing. Even though I know David Lynch wasn't very keen on how it turned out, but I think it's marvellous, and I think I'd watch that over Denis Villeneuve's Dune, which I did enjoy, but I'd watch the David Lynch one over that any day of the week. It's bonkers because it's a David Lynch film. It's quite gruesome in places. It's got amazing production design. The effects are a bit wonky sometimes, but sometimes they're amazing. So it's all over the place, which makes it, kind of special in my book. So there. So I'm swapping that for June 1984. Fight Me. Arrival. This is another one that's getting... speaking of Denis Villeneuve, so he's back again with Arrival. Jeremy Renner was out of hospital, thank goodness. And what's her face? Amy Adams? Yeah, it says there. On its surface, Arrival stars Amy Adams as a linguist whose expertise is enlisted when alien life makes first contact with Earth. However, as with all great science fiction, there's a great deal more going on. A very well-constructed story, and the third science fiction movie directed by Denis Villeneuve on this list. Is it? Oh. Arrival is an emotional character exploration with a satisfying, if potentially heartbreaking, conclusion. I didn't like it. I thought it was dull as dishwater. In fact, I said a better version of this film is a film from the 90s. I think it was 1999, I think. I could be wrong. Or it might be even earlier. It might be 1990. I better check. Let me check. There's a film called Epoch. It was a low budget, like an indie film. Or 2000 it came out. But it says in Wikipedia 2001. Make your mind up, internet. Anyway, it stars Keith David. It's one of these, let's say, these low budget. It's one step above like a Sci-Fi Channel movie. But that's about an alien machine that comes down. They call it a Taurus, and they have to go and make contact with it. And I think that's a much better made film than in terms of story and keeping your interest in Arrival, which I just thought were boring. But I haven't swapped it for that, by the way, because I don't think Epoch belongs on this list either. I've swapped that for Contact, which is, the Robert Zemeckis film based on the Carl Sagan book. One of my favourite films ever. It's got some amazing effects in it. The best effect I've ever seen in my life, the bathroom mirror effect. Just watch it, and you'll probably say, "What's he on about?" Just think about it when you watch it. That belongs on this list more than Arrival. So there you go. Right, The Terminator. I think I've left this one on. I think this one's escaped my ire. Yes, it has. Yeah, sorry about that. Quick wardrobe change. I'm freezing cold, so I've had to put my coat on. I've got the fire on and everything. But it's blooming freezing today. Roll on spring. Where were we? Number 18, The Terminator. No list of science fiction films could possibly be complete without the movie that created one of the biggest action heroes of all time. The Terminator introduced Arnold Schwarzenegger as an unstoppable killing machine, and for a guy that looked like he did, audiences bought it. Sarah Connor. While the movie doesn't have the flashy special effects of future sequels, although it did pretty good for its day, for its time, and its budget, that's part of why this movie still stands up. It's a desperate fight against the unstoppable force. It's not supposed to be pretty. While most of the movies that followed never held up, the reason they even tried is because the original was so good. Yeah, it's a great film, is The Terminator, and it deserves to be on this list. I said some of the effects, some of Stan Winston's puppet work with the Arnold Schwarzenegger's head. Yeah, it's not real. But it's still a great film. It's not entirely original because he had to include a card at the end, acknowledging the works of Harlan Ellison, because Harlan Ellison kicked off. That stole his story idea. But that's James Cameron. He just takes other people's ideas or takes things he's read or seen and just makes it into a better film. He does that a lot. I'm a James Cameron fan. But yeah, so that's staying in the list. As is Terminator 2, which I think is further up the list. That's staying in, obviously. But here we go. Wall-E. Another lovely little film from Pixar. You know, when Pixar made good films. You remember that? They used to make good films, didn't they? Was John Lasseter still there when Wall-E came out? I think he was. Basically, John Lasseter left Pixar and it all went to the dogs, didn't it? Well, he didn't leave. He was forced out, only because of Me Too, because he's a hugger. Anyway, Wall-E, one of the best science fiction films ever made, except it deals with the elements of artificial intelligence, love between artificial beings, and the destruction of human habitat. Also, it's an animated Pixar movie. Pixar has a near-perfect record when it comes to create good movies. No, it doesn't, not anymore. However, Wall-E may be in a class by itself. It's a film so good that the movie doesn't even require dialogue for half its runtime. It is by far the best animated science fiction movie ever made. I think a lot of people will disagree with you there. Wall-E will be one of our favourite sci-fi characters forever. Wall-E and Eve have one of the great cinematic romances of all time. Although I do like Wall-E, it's a lovely film. I don't think it deserves to be on this list. And I've swapped it for War of the Worlds, 1953. The George Powell produced, I think Byron Haskin directed, version of H.G. Wells' classic novel, although they brought it up to the 1950s. I think that belongs to be in this list. More than Wall-E. Totally different movies, obviously. You know, one's about a Martian invasion and one's about a robot. But there you go. So that's what I'm swapping that for. War of the Worlds, 1953. Jurassic Park. There we go. And the thing comes down. Obviously, this one's staying on the list, isn't it? Yeah, of course it is. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4. The next, including this one, the next 4 films are staying on this list. So, while actors performing against non-existent characters on a green screen is fairly commonplace now, such things were mostly unheard of prior to the release of Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park. I suppose, I don't know, not really. What's more, while many digital effects in other films from the era don't really hold up today, the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park do. That, combined with one of John Williams' best scores, makes for a movie that's entertaining and exciting every time you see it. Also, it has dinosaurs in it, and they eat people. You can't really go wrong with that. You can't. It's one of the greatest films ever made. It'd probably be in my top 5, to be honest. But anyway, Aliens, get away from her, you biatch. Following up Ridley Scott's Alien could not have been an easy task, even if James Cameron acted like it was the easiest thing in the world. The director made at least one brilliant decision, however. Rather than try to recreate the pulse-pounding terror of the original film, brilliant in its own right, he traded some of that tension in for space marine action. There continue to be attempts to recreate the magic of an Alien sequel, but nobody, even Ridley Scott himself, has been able to go back to this world and figure out how to make it work. It's hard to believe people told James Cameron Aliens would end his career. Yeah, it's a great film. It's a great sequel because it's totally different to the original. That's why it's so great. And he's good at that stuff. He's good at military, jargon and military lingo and, soldier stuff. He's good at that, is James Cameron. He's good at writing it. I think just before Aliens, he wrote the screenplay for Rambo Part 2, didn't he? So, anyway. So, yes, that's staying in. Oh, as is this one, Planet of the Apes, classic, 1968. Charlton Heston, Roddy McDowall, Kim Hunter, and others. There you go. Who could have possibly dreamed that all these years later, a movie about a planet run by apes would still be so popular? Yet here we are. While the original may be best known for its famous twist ending, as opposed to anything else, its influence on popular culture simply can't be overlooked. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius, for instance. It received sequels, adaptations, spoofs, and more recently, a new series of movies that have been as good as anything the series has ever produced. None of that happens without Charlton Heston and his damn dirty apes. Get your filthy hands off me, you damn dirty ape. Great film. Which earns it a spot on this list, yes. I would put Planet of the Apes, the first one, on. But personally, my favourite Planet of the Apes film is Beneath Planet of the Apes with James Franciscus and Charlton Heston briefly. That's my favourite, but I do acknowledge that the first one is the better film, the classic film. Right, number 13, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Yeah, it is the best Star Trek film. It is. Although I do love the original, the motion picture. I didn't like it at the time. I was 12 when it came out, and I went to the cinema. I took my young nephew, who were, I don't know how old he'll have been, about 8. No, he'd have been less than that. About 6 or 7. And he was totally disinterested in the film. He kept talking to the man and his kid behind us, and he kept saying, "My Uncle Steve will beat you up." I was 12. But I found the motion picture quite boring at the time. But I love it now. Just got it on 4K. Looks amazing. The director's cut. But anyway, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Because as George Takei said, they did the motion picture and that made a lot of money. And so they did Star Trek II. But Gene Roddenberry were essentially out. He were elbowed out. They brought Harve Bennett in. Gene Roddenberry were kept as a consultant, although I think he had little to do with it. They had ideas for it, but they got Nicholas Meyer in, whose previous film, Time After Time, were a pretty good time travel thriller. Not as good as people make out, but, it were okay. Starring Malcolm McDowell and David Warner, the late, great David Warner, who would both go on to be in Star Trek films. Anyway, you can't really talk about science fiction without including Star Trek in the conversation. For a series that's gone on as long as it has, the movie side has seen its ups and downs, but the best of them still has to be the second film in the franchise, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. If you were a hardcore Star Trek fan, then this film was a godsend as it brought back one of the great villains from the original series. However, you didn't need to be steeped in lore to enjoy Ricardo Montalban's over-the-top evil performance. The movie's so good, the reboot film series wanted to do their own take on it, but it were crap. But really, there's no way to improve on perfection. I won't call it perfect, but it's a really, really good film. It deserves to be on this list. But as does the motion picture, in my opinion. And all the others. And Star Trek The Cage. But let's say I'm a Star Trek fan. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Now, I've not seen this, so I can't comment. But I've replaced it. Because I've not seen it, I've replaced it. But we'll have a read. The word masterpiece is one that should not be used lightly when discussing film, but it got used frequently by critics discussing Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Michelle Yeoh is always great on screen. Pardon me, I'm burping. Beans on toast. But she's in a class all by herself in this multiverse story that sees Yeoh jumping between her various realities and trying to save everything. It's the newest film on this list. I thought The Martian was. But we're confident this one will stand the test of time. Even if not everybody thinks Everything, Everywhere, All at Once is even the best movie of the year it released. I don't know, because I've not seen it. But people do say it's good. But I did replace this one with Forbidden Planet. Forbidden Planet from 1950-something. I can't remember. Is it 58? I think it's 58. It's either 56 or 58. Let's have a look. I'm probably totally wrong. 1956. Leslie Nielsen. No, not The Comic Shop. Oh, I tell you. There we go. 1956 film. Leslie Nielsen, Anne Francis, Walter Pidgeon, and many, many more. I think that deserves to be on the list. Even if Everything, Everywhere, All at Once is the greatest film ever made, I've not seen it, so I can't comment on it, so I'm swapping it for Forbidden Planet. I'm surprised that didn't make this list, because that is one of the greatest science fiction films ever made. Obviously, everybody knows it's an adaptation of Shakespeare's The Tempest. It's great, and it's got Robbie the Robot in, so it can't go wrong. Right, number 11, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Your clothes, give them to me. While the original Terminator is a classic, it was the sequel, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, that took the franchise... I just made wrong the American spelling. There's an E. Put an E in. Judgment Day that took the franchise to the next level. This time, Arnold got to be the hero as he was sent back in time to protect John Connor from the next generation of Terminator, the T-1000. James Cameron has always been one to latch onto the newest technology in filmmaking, and for Terminator 2 it was digital morphing effects that allowed the T-1000 to transform in front of our eyes. Remember the water tentacle from the abyss that eventually became the technology behind the T-1000. Add to that the fact that the film was rated R during a time period where the PG-13 rating was beginning to establish movie dominance, and fans got exactly the sequel they wanted, bigger and better. And obviously on home video you can watch the super extended edition, which is it better? Probably, because there's some extended scenes in it that just add to the film, and it's a great film. Yeah, and I think it deserves to be on this list. Right, The Thing. I think this one's staying on as well. I better double check these, aren't I? Yeah, we're all right for a couple more. You know that you've made a seminal work of science fiction when your movie is so good people forget it's a remake. John Carpenter's The Thing technically follows 1951's The Thing from Another World, and while that movie is still pretty good, it doesn't hold a candle to the masterclass in science fiction and horror that Carpenter's film was. The movie is still debated today as the ending of The Thing is left open to interpretation. Was The Thing destroyed, or is one of the final survivors actually a monster in disguise? Yeah, it's a great film. As I said, it's a remake of The Thing from Another World, which, that's an okay film. It's from the 50s. But it's not as good as people make it out to be. It's okay. I quite enjoy it. Hey guys, I think we found a flying saucer. That's what they said, don't they, in the original one. But yeah, John Carpenter's The Thing is a classic, mostly thanks, or largely thanks to Rob Bottin's amazing makeup effects and animatronics and stuff. Although Stan Winston did help out on one scene. But yeah, it's a great film. It's a great film, and it's probably the closest we've come to Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness on film, which I think I don't know why that's not being made. It's not unfilmable, not these days. I know Guillermo del Toro wanted to do it, didn't he? But hopefully it'll happen one day. By the way, if you go back to the 1970s, I can't remember the exact year, but the Tom Baker Doctor Who adventure, the Seeds of Doom, with the crinoids, the first part of that is a lot like The Thing. So were they not copying, but they homaging the 1951 film, or the book that were based on, Who Goes There? And was John Carpenter homaging that? Probably not. But yeah, look up that. Doctor Who, The Seeds of Doom. Is it? I'm sure it's The Seeds of Doom. Anyway, it's a Tom Baker one. That's a classic. Right, number 9, The Empire Strikes Back. Me hand. What is there to say that hasn't already been said about the Star Wars trilogy? It quite simply changed the way Hollywood works, while some, including George Lucas himself, aren't necessarily thrilled by that fact. It's the world we live in now. The Empire Strikes Back was the film that proved that the pop culture circus that surrounded the first film was no accident. In many ways, the sequel is even superior to the original. I still prefer Star Wars to the Empire. Although I do love Empire, and I watched it quite recently. And it's the only film, I think, that I've got to watch from the first frame all the way through the credits to the end frame, just because I want to. Not because I'm waiting for a post-credits scene. The music's that good. You've got to watch the credits on The Empire Strikes Back. Anyway, with one of the greatest twists in the history of film included, The Empire Strikes Back will never be forgotten. Yeah, it's a great film. But my favourite Star Wars film, and I will keep saying this, is Rogue One. I'll keep saying that. I think it's got everything. Because not all Star Wars films are perfect. I get a bit bored in The Empire Strikes Back when he's on Dagobah with Yoda and stuff. I don't like them scenes. I don't. I think they're a bit boring, to be honest. I know it's all part of the story and Luke's training, blah, 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 but, But juxtaposed with that, it's got one of the best scenes in all movie history. The asteroid chase, asteroid field scene. Great stuff. Anyway, E.T., the extraterrestrial. I suspect I've swapped this one. Have I? Yes, I have. How can I swap E.T., the extraterrestrial? Because I don't think E.T. is as great as people make it out to be. So often in science fiction, the aliens are the bad guys that need to be defeated. However, Steven Spielberg's E.T., the extraterrestrial, doesn't just create a sympathetic alien that needs to be protected, it puts that protection in the hands of kids, making the movie something that entire families can enjoy. As such, it becomes one of those films that people make sure is seen by future generations. It's a heartwarming story, excuse me, that can hit you in the feels, whether it's the first time you've seen it or the 50th. Well, yeah, if you don't get a bit lip quivery, a bit eye-watery in watching E.T., you're not human. Andy, my mate that I went to the pictures with to see it, he was just sat laughing when E.T.'s lying in that creek, half dead. Mate just pointed and laughed, saying, "Looks like he's being pickled." And I'm there with tears running down my face. But yeah, it's a good film, but, I don't think it's one of the greatest science fiction films of all time. I don't. I think it's an okay sci-fi family drama comedy, whatever. It's a Spielberg film, isn't it? I've swapped this one for King Kong, 1933 original King Kong, which I think is one of the greatest films ever made. In my list, this would be probably at the top. Is it sci-fi or fantasy? I don't know. It's sci-fi, isn't it? They go to an island where there's still dinosaurs. So that's science fiction, isn't it? It's as science fiction as other stuff. Yeah. So King Kong 1933, starring Fay Wray, Robert Armstrong, Bruce Cabot, and King Kong himself. Check out that film. It's amazing. There is a colour version knocking about, but, watch the original. The original, when I say colour version, I mean the original 1933 version has been colourised. It's probably on, the high seas. I think it was when what's his face, Ted Turner, were running in charge of his TNT Turner Movies. He went through colourising all these old black and white films, didn't he? I think he did like Casablanca and all these other films and stuff. Colourised them, didn't he? Because he wanted films to be in colour. So I think they did King Kong for that. And it looks quite good in colour, to be honest. It's not amazing, but it looks quite good. Anyway, next up. I think I've left them alone after that. I think we're just going to get down the list and I've nothing else to say. I've nothing to replace it with because all these belong on this list. Number 7, Metropolis. Made in 1927 when movies were still without sound, Metropolis is still one of the most influential science fiction movies ever made. Its visual and effects were ahead of their time, fitted for a movie that portrayed a world that was highly advanced in technology, if not in humanity. It's difficult to argue that without Metropolis we may never have had any of the other films on this list. If you've never seen the film, it is worth it to take the time and find it, if only to see the precursor to so many other genre classics. Well, yeah, I mean, it's C-3PO sitting there, isn't it? I know it's Maria, but she was the template for C-3PO. Plus, Queen would never be able to make the video for their song Radio Gaga if it wasn't for Metropolis. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This would be up in my top 5 as well. It's another of my favourite films of all time. Hey, look, it's Steven Spielberg again. The accomplished director has numerous great films in his filmography, but when it comes to the science fiction genre, Close Encounters of the Third Kind is clearly his magnum opus. The question of whether or not we are alone in the universe is a topic in several films on this list, but while most films are about the answer, Close Encounters is a film about the question. It's about humanity's fascination with the idea of aliens and the length to which some will go to find a connection with the rest of the galaxy. It's a beautiful film and clearly one of the top 10 in all of science fiction. Yeah, it's a great film. Speaking of films about aliens that could be in this list, but personally wouldn't, because I thought about it. Not swapping this one out, swapping one of the others out. There's a film called The Objective, which is about a group of US, I think the Marines, special forces anyway, and they're going to Afghanistan looking for, I think somebody's disappeared, and they end up coming across, what they call Vimanas, which are like ancient aliens, UFOs kind of stuff, and it all gets weird and wonderful. But I say that's a good film. But it's different, and it's a low-budget film. It was actually directed by one of the chaps that directed Blair Witch Project. There you go. So look for that one. Although that doesn't deserve to be in this list, really. But it's if you like stuff about aliens that are a bit subjective rather than the objective, they're a bit subjective and open to interpretation, go check out The Objective. Number 5, The Matrix. The best movies are the ones that turn out to be great. When you had no idea what to expect, The Matrix surprised pretty much everybody when it was released in 1999. Its cutting-edge use of the bullet-time cameras and wire-fu martial arts combined with a cyberpunk aesthetic was quite simply a combination that nobody had seen before. Add a solid story with a healthy dose of philosophical discussion on the nature of reality, and the result is so popular that the universe is still being mined for stories to this day. Perhaps none of the Matrix sequels have measured up, but that just shows how great the original truly was. Yeah, it's a great film, is The Matrix. It is a great film. I like all of them, to be honest. I want to keen on the recent one, Matrix Resurrections. But I didn't hate it. But the first 3, I did quite enjoy. I know a lot of people didn't like Matrix Revolutions. I thought were all right. But the first one is the best. The first one is the best. And it deserves to be on this list. But some people might say, well, if you're having The Matrix on, why not have Dark City? Because I think Dark City came out earlier, and it's very similar in feel to The Matrix. It's a similar kind of story. So that should be on as well, really. But it didn't have as big an impact as The Matrix. Number 4, Blade Runner. There's Harrison Ford as Deckard. The fact that Blade Runner saw a sequel 25 years after the original debuted is all it takes to show how this film has survived over the years. Yeah, but the sequel wasn't very good, though, was it? Thank goodness Top Gun Maverick were good. Ridley Scott's story about a future where androids are virtually indistinguishable from humans live amongst us capture the imaginations. Perhaps one of the reasons the film has been so popular is that it has so many versions to choose from. I'd quite like the original with Harrison Ford's voiceover. Pardon me. Because it makes it feel like a film noir. But anyway, no fewer than 7 different cuts have been released over the years. The fact that so much work has been done following the initial release not only shows that fans are still interested, but also helps to show how involved the film's story truly is. That it can be looked at from so many different perspectives. I've got a bit of a confession. I've not always liked Blade Runner. No, I have. I've always liked Blade Runner, but I've not always loved Blade Runner. I'm not even sure I love it now, to be honest. It's a film I respect more than like. I don't know. I do like it, and I like watching it, but it's more for the visuals and the music rather than the story, to be honest. It's a background film. I'll put it on and do something else, and I'll be listening to the spinners flying about and the Vangelis's amazing score, rather than the sound effects and stuff, the sound design, rather than following the story. Because I think Ridley Scott, his films, I often lose interest in. You'll get to a certain point in a Ridley Scott film, and my mind will start wandering, or I'll start checking. Well, nowadays I'll start looking at my phone. In the old days when we didn't have phones, I'd probably just get up and go to the loo or make a cup of tea. It's easy to get distracted in a Ridley Scott film. I think his best film, personally, for me, Ridley Scott, is there's 2. 2 of his films that keep me gripped from beginning to end: Gladiator and Black Hawk Down. I think they're his 2 best films. But that's just my personal opinion. Blade Runner, though, it does deserve to be on this list. Even though I don't love it, I do like it. Number 3, Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope. Right, while The Empire Strikes Back, I thought they'd have been a little bit higher, but never mind. I mean, number 3 is not to be sniffed at, is it? While The Empire Strikes Back is viewed by many to be the high point of the Star Wars franchise, you simply can't underestimate just how important a film the original movie is. It's Star Wars, it's not A New Hope. It not only launched the biggest property in the history of pop culture, I don't think it is anymore, is it? Marvel's overtaken it, I think. But it changed the way movies were made and the way science fiction was viewed by the masses. No longer was it simply the purview of little kids watching Flash Gordon serials. Science fiction was now serious business. Everybody tried to do their own Star Wars after the original became the highest grossing film of all time. They all failed to match its brilliance. Who can remember Star Crash? Starring Carolyn Munro. It's great. It's that bad, it's rubbish. That rubbish, it's that bad, it's good. Star Crash. And Battle Beyond the Stars, they came out in the... Battlestar Galactica were an answer to, Star Wars. Albeit on TV, but it did get a theatrical release, outside the United States. What else were there? There were lots of other stuff, weren't there? Buck Rogers in the 25th century. That were another Star Wars thing, wasn't it? That in response to that, anyway. But yeah, well deserving on the list. Alien. This would have been lower down for me because Ridley Scott again. It dips in the middle. Anyway, in space, no one can hear you scream. With that simple phrase, we were introduced to some of the most terrifying alien creatures that have ever been created. Luckily, we were also introduced to one of the most badass heroes that science fiction or any genre has ever seen, Sigourney Weaver's Ellen Ripley. Sigourney Weaver's Ellen Ripley broke the mould when it came to genre heroines, and she's still one of the greatest ever created, if not the greatest ever created. Alien was as good a science fiction film as it was a horror movie, and the two are inextricably intertwined with each other. It is absolutely one of the best science fiction movies ever made. Yes, it is, but I think it'd be a bit lower down for me. I think Star Wars would be above Alien for me. To be honest, Star Wars would be above the number 1, if you guessed what it is from that picture, because number 1 is 2001: A Space Odyssey. I went to see this at the cinema. Not in 1968 when it came out. I think it was probably 1978. I think they did 10th anniversary reissue. So I went to see it. And yeah, it was all right. I was on the 11, so I didn't really understand it. But I love it now. Again, it's another background film. You put it on, do something while listening to the music and Strauss and all that. You can't talk about the sound design because there isn't a lot of sound in it. A lot of it's pretty quiet. It's essentially a silent movie. Apart from breathing, you can hear a lot of breathing when they're in the spacesuits. But anyway, every movie on this list is a great one, but all of them owe something to Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. The movie really has everything you could possibly want. It's got impressive It's got impressive outer space scenes. It's got because they were really filmed in space. It's got drama that borders on horror thanks to a slightly deranged computer, the HAL 9000. I can't do that, Dave. They're all dead, Dave. Sorry, that's Holly of Red Dwarf. Then it's got completely off-the-wall imagery, the star thing at the end, into infinity thing, whatever. Beyond the infinite. Still don't understand that. And symbolism from Stanley Kubrick that still has people talking and asking questions to this day. After all these years, we still can't stop thinking about 2001, which is why it's still the best science fiction movie ever made. It should have got best makeup effects, in my opinion, for that year's Oscars. But it went to Planet of the Apes for their apes makeup. The special Oscar for makeup went to that year. But you look at the apes in 2001, the ape men, should I say, and their faces are miles more articulated than the Planet of the Apes ones. Anyway, there have been some great science fiction movies over the last 100 years of cinema, and there are great science fiction movies yet to come. While these are the best of the best right now, in your opinion, this list will never be entirely finished, true, as there will always be new movies worthy of consideration, and old movies worthy of consideration. Is that it? Yeah. So there you go. So they've put 2001 at number 1. I've left it there. Yes, I've left it there. I'd put these in a different order. As I said, Close Encounters, Star Wars, King Kong, I think they'd all be above. And there's probably some others as well that I'd put higher. As I said, I'd put Star Wars higher, but as I've said, my favourite Star Wars film is Rogue One, which is bizarre. I know. I can't explain it. It just is. I watch that quite regularly. I watch it more than A New Hope, which I'll still call Star Wars. I always watch the theatrical version of Star Wars, not the special edition. So there you go. We'll leave it there. That were a long one, wasn't it? That were a long one. I'll put the list in the description, and I've also the ones I've changed. I've put little stars and my alternative choice in there. So let me just type that in before I forget. Get in there. We go. Yeah, so I'll do that. Right, so we'll leave it there. So I'm going to make another cup of coffee because mine's gone cold now and I'm freezing. So hopefully my hearing comes back. I tell you, this ear that's blocked. Don't know why. I think it's the weather. It's very misty out there. So, and they're predicting that we're going to get a snow bomb. So we'll see. So thanks, Marie, for giving me this list to look at. It's food for thought. As I said, I didn't agree with all of them. But thanks for watching anyway, and wherever you are in the universe, look after each other, and until next time, I'll see you there.